Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me on part two of the introduction to STIR. And before we dive in, I want to start off right where we left off last time and looking at the key reflections from part one. Have you felt into what your origin story is, your early temperament, your living system, and how it's affected by information in the environment? What would be your trauma imprint? What would be the pivot point in your mood throughout the day when you are triggered by something? And then when you are triggered, what comes up as your protector aspect? We looked into those a little bit in session number one, and we're going to carry that theme forward into session number two. And there's a lot of information that comes together in the end. All of these bullet points that I go over, every slide, every bullet point ties into the main theme of the mechanisms on how we store trauma, how we react and store trauma, and then how that trauma imprint gets triggered and affects the way we are in the world. So bear with me here. There's a lot of information. We're going to go through it pretty quickly, but as you go through it, there's going to be things that come into your awareness. And those are the things we want to focus on. And you can reach out to me in a private session and we can do a Q&A in our live show we have coming up shortly. So please bear with me and get through this information and see what resonates with you. So let's start off with one of my favorite people in the world, Bruce Lipton, who is the grandfather of epigenetic discovery and research. And he has been an amazing mentor to me. I've got to interview him 4 times, and he has actually endorsed my entire program for mindful presence. So let's start out with Dr. Bruce Lipton. Okay, one of the big offerings that he has given is the understanding of the belief effect, which is now really accepted through academia and all through the neuroscience and the physiology of our being, that the belief effect is what they go by with the placebo and the nocebo. The placebo is a positive effect, and the nocebo is a negative effect of the belief effect. And it's very important because, as Bruce Lipton has brought us, and all neuroscience proves, that your perception of reality is more deterministic than reality itself. It's not what happens to us, it's how we perceive it and what it means to us. And that actually creates a different blood chemistry in your body and a different gene expression that you bring out into the world. And if you remember from session one, we talk about our original genetic code, and we also talk about the epigenetic expression that we bring into the world due to being triggered by trauma. So this affects the HPA axis we also talked about, the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenals, that when we get traumatized, we have a reactive point and it changes how we see the world. So we go forward, not backwards, and we come into another slide about allostasis. And we've heard the term homeostasis. We talked about that in session one, where this is a stance we have where we are in balance and we find something in our environment that triggers us and we are out of balance. And I always use, like when we're in person, I use a rubber band where you put a rubber band around your thumbs and you say, okay, this is my true self and this is how far out of alignment I am. And that creates tension in the rubber band. And that's the same thing in your body. Our body in homeostasis is an amazing, amazing machine that rides within a tenth of a degree or two from 98.6. No matter what we do, no matter where we go, its job is to keep that core temperature at 98.6. Now, if you get in a cold environment, your body will sacrifice blood flow to one part of the body to save the core of the body, the entire living system. So that is called the allostatic load. How far out of homeostasis are we? And it becomes a maladaptive stress response when we are triggered. This illustration I'm giving is being hot or cold, but when you look at stress and what you're giving up when you're in stress and fight or flight, that's taking blood away from all of your life force energy to be well and to rest and digest and to heal. So, how far out of balance are you? How far out of homeostasis? That's called the allostatic load. And when we deal with stress on a chronic basis, that becomes a maladaptive stress response that keeps that allostatic load high. So you look at that as stress level or anxiety level, and you might get up and have immediate anxiety just by getting out of bed and thinking about your day, and say that's a level 4, your anxiety level. Well, your entire body, your entire living system is going to be in an allostatic load of 4 or 5, and something's going to give. It might not be all the way to frostbite because the allostatic load will give up 2 fingers or 2 toes to save the whole living system. It might not be that extreme, but it will, something of your health and vitality will be given up. For every heartbeat you spend in stress is a heartbeat you're not spending in wellness. So one of my dear friends who I've got to know on this journey, Thomas Verney, he wrote the book 44 years ago, The Secret Life of Your Unborn Child. And his second book that I read, he has many books, but is called The Embodied Mind. And he references the heart's toroidal field, which heart math, as we talk about, measures your balance, your homeostasis, or how far out of homeostasis you are. And one of the photos they use is the one on the right, where you have an electromagnetic toroidal field, and that can expand when you're coherent and contract when you're triggered and in fight or flight. And that is literally the connection to divinity. Your original genetic code, which we went over in session 1, is a wave form, and it is coming in magnetized into your toroidal field. And it cannot go into your body and update consciousness, because we have, like it says, we have consciousness in every cell of our body, and it's constantly being updated by the flow of consciousness. And if we have a trauma, it's called body armoring, and it's an imprint for survival. As we talked about, it's emotional snapshot held in the body, and it's body armored from consciousness, giving it a constant update of your original and your pure epigenetic expression. So that's a very important point that we look at, and we're going to move on to the human circuit. And I love this slide and the information it brings in, because we are built with energy centers, and Eastern teachings call them chakras. Joe Dispenza focuses on energy centers because they are literally junctions in the body where meridians cross and energy is held. And when we're fully in alignment, energy flows right through us. When we're completely in alignment, like in coherence between our heart and our mind, and we're grounded in Mother Gaia, we are connected to the negative, and the positive can come in. Just like in your car or a boat or anything with a 12-volt battery, it's a direct current, and it directly applies to how we're built. Every cell in our body, every magnet, every tissue in our body, and our entire living system has a positive and a negative side. If we are not grounded, where the negative can go to Mother Earth, then the positive can't come in. So if you hook the bottom of a light to the ground and the top of the light to the power source, if the ground is bad, the power can't come in and it cannot light the light. It cannot light the living circuit. So every energy center, every chakra in our body is either a resistor or a capacitor. And in the electrical world, a resistor is something that resists and blocks the energy, and the capacitor builds energy and then ignites, releases that energy into the living system when we are charged and feeling powerful. So we either have a resistor or a capacitor. And when we are in total alignment, where we are in coherence vertically and we're in lateral integration, which we'll talk about more, then we are in the physiology of our divinity. That's where we are perfectly balanced and centered. So when we have trauma in our body, energy cannot flow through that trauma. It has to do a workaround. It has to move around that, take a different path around that trauma, and it doesn't flow freely, and that creates resistance in the body. And when we're triggered and out of the physiology of our divinity, energy can't flow in, and we get depressed and low energy and down. So one of the things I love is how consciousness enters the body. And early on in my son's journey, I researched, one of the first things I researched was being the eye of the storm. We were in a surgical situation where it was literally like people were going in slow motion. We were the eye of the storm. We were in slow motion and people were in chaos around us. And Nassim, I'm researching him, and Nassim says, looking for consciousness inside the brain is like looking for the announcer inside the radio. It's not there. It is a signal. Consciousness is a signal, and we are the receiver. We receive it through the right brain, and we receive our connection to our soul through our heart. So this is an important takeaway, and it is a truth of our physiology that can change our life and get us unstuck from our 3D windings. So here's a beautiful illustration from the teachings of David R. Hawkins in his book, Power versus Force. And he's famous for studying consciousness and bringing the awareness towards our own consciousness, bringing our consciousness to consciousness. So he grades level of consciousness. And when we're in the low section, when we're in shame and guilt and grief and fear, and we are in the lower frequencies, we are denser. If you remember from the first session, we talk about everything in the universe is both quantum, wave, and Newtonian, particle. And the more we are at the lower end of the spectrum, the more particle we are. The more we are up in the higher of love and joy, peace, and enlightenment, we are open and expanded, and we are more wave than particle. The veil between us and the all-knowing is much thinner, and we receive the downloads, and um, we receive that information much clearer and that should do it. Okay, so hopefully that worked. I don't know what caused that, but we're just going to skip right past it. So let's get back to this. So if you look at this cone, and the more we're in shame, guilt, and apathy, the tighter that is, the denser we are. And if you open up, if you get up and you come into desire, and anger is at least movement, right? Willingness and acceptance and reason, and then love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. That opens up, and that level of 1,000 is like where Jesus and Buddha and every one of those learned masters affect millions of people on earth. So if you take this and you go down into fear, say at a level 100, right at the turn between red and orange, and you were to cut that and look through it, then that is the aperture in which you see the world. You're looking at the world through the tight, convergent focus of fear. You're in fight or flight, and you are more particle than wave, and you are closed off. This is where I talk about it's like working on your computer without being online. All you can do is use the programming within you, the programming on your computer. You don't have access to the all-knowing, to the internet. So this literally cuts you off from that stream of consciousness that updates you and upgrades you all the time. We're going to go a little bit more into this with Jill Bolte Taylor. So Jill Bolte Taylor, amazing original TED Talk was called My Stroke of Insight. And her book, My Stroke of Insight, talked about how she had a left brain bleed. And the left brain, of course, is the fight or flight and digital particle side of us. And the right brain is divinity. And why, but we have a problem with the mic again. Okay, so we should be back on. So the connection between our right brain and our left brain is the corpus callosum. And it is a neural bundle that goes in the right brain and left brain. I'm sorry, bear with me. It connects the right brain and left brain, and it has inhibitory fibers in it. So if you go and you're triggered in fight or flight, and your left brain is getting all of the activity, it takes away the blood flow, and that inhibits the connection to your right brain. So it shuts down your connection to consciousness. So what we do when we learn about that is that if we enhance our right brain thinking and way of being, our creativity, our songs, our dancing, our connection to the nature and to other people, when we're open in that upper scale of love and joy and peace, then we're creating flow in our right brain and inhibiting flow to the left brain. And that naturally cuts down that chatter of the monkey mind that keeps on nagging at us with looping thoughts. So it also refers to the cerebellum versus the cerebrum. The cerebrum is the upper layer that we use in our thought, and the cerebellum is our autonomic nervous system, our reactive reptilian brain, where we fight, flight, and it takes over our heart rate and everything in our body, and it takes away our thinking mind. So these are very important things to understand about the way we're made, because when we're triggered, all of these systems of our thought and our receptiveness and our balance within are taken away. So this slide is beautiful. It shows the picture. You've got the eyeballs, and you've got the optical nerves that cross, and they go into the thalamus. And the thalamus projects images onto the visual cortex. But the visual cortex actually provides 6 times more information than what's coming in your eyes. So if you think about that, you have a visual memory from the past. Anything from the present that comes into your focus, into your field view, is gauged against 6 times more information coming from your visual cortex. And this is what's referred to as your inner model. It's what's in your mind's eye is more important than what you're seeing in your environment. And if you think back to Bruce Lipton, your perception of your environment is more deterministic than your environment itself. So your inner model, what you've stored, is more important. And Dan Siegel in his book Mindsight talks about this beautifully. And we have mirror neurons in our brain. And when we see something, we mirror it, we mimic it. We've all watched something hard to watch, or a wrestling match, or a ballerina doing a jump. We kind of lean our body because it not only creates an image that we mirror, but it also creates action in our body. So we're actually wired to take action based on what we see and what we perceive in the world. And he talks in his book about our resonant circuitry. That's the insula that goes vertically. And we're back to the lessons of heart math, where your mind and your heart and your all your living system is in alignment in your resonant circuitry. And with the inner model, we really are a product of our environment. We see what we perceive in our environment and we compare it to our inner model, and then we act upon that subconsciously without knowing it. But with this information, we're now bringing it into our awareness where we can understand it and make an adjustment. So, based on what we've gone through, I want to look at five key takeaways and reflection from what we've gone through. Now, what are your beliefs about trauma? What comes up when you're triggered that is more important than your actual environment? Because if we perceive something as dangerous, trauma triggers it, and then it triggers our belief systems. So when that happens, what is being sacrificed of your health and well-being? What do you notice in your life that's paying the price for our triggers and our beliefs? And then think about the scale of consciousness. Where are you during the day? Are you triggered in anger and anxiety all the time? Are you have shame, guilt, doubt? Think of where you are and how you flex on that scale of consciousness. And when we are triggered, we're in left brain dominance. So think about it throughout your day. Are you in right brain, open and receptive, or are you triggered in left brain? Which side is dominant? And now for the fifth one, let's think about things in our environment that we see and we make judgment on, but then it's turned out not to be the case because our inner model is not always correct. We're holding on to things that are no longer true. So all of these go together. When you feel triggered, what's your belief system? What do you picture for your life? And how is that affecting the decisions you make and the results you get? So another very important point is Timothy Leary and Ram Dass showed us through their experiments with psychedelics. The set and setting determine the experience, and the experience determines the outcome. So if you want to have a different outcome, change your set and setting, change your understanding of this information, and you can change your experience and get the outcome you desire. So both sessions 1 and 2 are leading up to a live event coming up. Check our schedule. It is the 25th of this month, Friday the 25th. And it'll be on my page and on Harmonium. And I would love for you to join me for this live session and then question and answer. So what would be a prerequisite for that live session? The best possible outcome, if you create your set and setting by watching session number 1, doing the breathing exercises, and then session number 2, then you will be ready and prepared for the live event. And if you haven't watched those, please feel free to show up. We'll start from the beginning with a little coherence breathing together, and then we'll move on from there. But if you want to have the best outcome, your set and setting will be that you watch number 1, number 2, and practice the breathing exercises. So we went through a lot of information. I had a little bit of issue with my microphone, but we're going to keep this in the can and hopefully it works for everybody. And I want to thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you live. on harmonium on April 25th, and we will go through the STIR program, Somatic Trauma Imprint Release, together. Thank you very much.